There's one skill that is separating you as a software engineer who currently doesn't have enough money, who's sad and confused, who's trapped, and who's ready to quit your job with no freedom from being me, who made $219,000 in revenue with my business just last month alone, and who's actually finally free now. And the same exact skill helped me land my first six-figure software engineering job in my junior year of university, and also helped me give a speech at Mar-a-Lago, Miami. And this is a story for another time. But the real reason that you are not where you want to be as a software engineer, let me tell you, it's not because of your programming skills, and it's not because you don't have enough years of experience. It's all because you underestimate the importance of communication. And to prove that this actually works, I have helped countless software engineers just like you make a lot more money. Now, let's get into it. First and foremost, let us define communication, okay? And we'll be defining it as sending and receiving of information, okay? So it's the sending and receiving of information. And there are primarily two reasons as to why software engineers disregard communication. The first reason being that they place an overemphasis on technical skills. Sure, technical skills are important. I'm not going to lie to you and say they aren't. But they are simply a prerequisite. They help you get your foot through the door, but that's all they do. I have a saying that goes, all good software engineers are good programmers, but not all good programmers are good software engineers. And it's precisely for this reason. The second reason is that most software engineers have the misconception that communication is not a part of their role. You see, there's a stereotype that software engineers work best in isolation or that coding is a solitary activity. And I have seen many people actually say that communicating with clients or other departments is a responsibility of the project managers. The same people usually believe that their value to a company lies solely in their ability to code and develop software. And understanding these reasons is crucial because we first have to override the belief that communication is not as important in software engineering. But how important is it actually? Let's take a simple example of applying to jobs as a software engineer, which all of you will have experience with. We have person one or person A, whoever you want to call it, and then we have person two. And let us assume they're applying to Facebook, or you can replace Facebook with whatever job you want to apply to. Person one does the patented approach of going on LinkedIn and just clicking the easy apply button and done, right? That's it. Person two, on the other hand, says, okay, I have my email, Loom video, personal website, resume, and cover letters ready. Now I'm going to personalize my message and send them out to the C-suite executives, hiring managers, and a few more folks at the company and try to get their attention that way. What are both of these people doing? They're still communicating because they're both sending out information. The first person is doing it through LinkedIn Easy Apply method. The second person is taking a lot more time and utilizing a system, a more efficient system, to send out the same exact information. Now, between person one and person two, who would you bet on considering all else is equal? Let's say person one and person two are technically adept and they're basically the same person, copy and paste. But person two did this approach. Who would you bet on? If you bet on person two, good job, because that person would be more likely to get the job. And here are just some numbers for you that we can run. 70% of software defects are caused by miscommunication of requirements, leading to an average rework cost of $1.56 million per project. 75% of long-term job success depends on people skills, in other words, communication, while only 25% is attributed to technical knowledge. 57% of senior leaders say soft skills, including communication, are more important than hard skills for career investment. And these are senior leaders. 57% of hiring managers consider communication skills crucial when hiring software engineers. And best of all, software engineers who negotiate and communicate effectively receive higher salaries on average, 7% higher than those who don't. And an internal study at Microsoft even shows that those with strong communication skills are promoted 22% faster than those with comparable technical skills but weaker communication skills. And software development teams lose an average of $11,000 per developer annually due to time spent clarifying miscommunications. And teams with strong communication practices are 29% more likely to meet project deadlines. And engineers who effectively communicate their ideas are 50% more likely to see their innovations implemented in the company they're working for. But this doesn't just apply to getting a job. This literally applies to every single aspect of your career, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. Business hinges on two fundamental skills, marketing and sales, both of which effective communication is a prerequisite for. But all that said and done, how do we actually master communication? We know it's important, but what can we do about it? Well, communication is composed of four main pillars. And if we master these four main pillars, we can master communication. Let's talk about the first pillar, active listening. But what is active listening? At its core, active listening is the conscious effort to fully concentrate, understand, respond, and remember what is being said in the conversation. It involves not just hearing the words, but also interpreting the speaker's message, emotions, and intent. Let me give you another example. So we have two people here, Alice and Bob, both software engineers. Alice goes up to Bob and says, there's a bug in the data processing module that's causing incorrect outputs. And Bob says, okay, I'll look into it later. And by the way, did you see the new email about the new project? And then Alice says, yeah, but this bug is impacting our current release. And Bob's like, sure, but I'm really excited about the new project. So obviously, this is not how proper communication should be done because Bob here was not actively listening. What should Bob have done? Let's take a look. Alice comes up with the same exact thing, right? There's a bug in a data processing module that's causing incorrect outputs. What does Bob do now? He gives his full attention to Alice. I see. Can you tell me more about what you found? And then Alice says, sure, the output values are off by a significant margin when processing large data sets. But look what Bob does. He reflects and clarifies Alice's point. He says, so the issue occurs with large data sets and outputs are incorrect. Have you noticed any patterns or errors in the logs? And Alice says, yes, the logs show a memory overflow error. And then Bob says, that makes sense. Let's dive into it together. So what do we do and how do we do it to actively listen in our environments? Well, first off, we need to give full attention. We need to stop all other activities and focus on the speaker that's speaking to us. In this case, you would stop all other activities that you're doing now and just pay attention to the video. Then we should use nonverbal cues, especially if we are in person. So we nod or just maintaining simple eye contact and showing engagement. That actually shows we're listening to them. Then we need to ask open-ended questions. We need to encourage the speaker to actually elaborate their points to showcase to them that, hey, we're actually listening. I want to know more. And we also have to reflect and paraphrase whatever they're saying to us to make sure that we summarize it to confirm the understanding, right? And we also have to avoid interrupting. We need to let the speaker finish their thoughts before responding to them. A good way to remember active listening is by this sentence. Do you listen or do you wait for your turn to speak, right? Always remember that in the back of your mind. Am I listening or am I just waiting for my turn to speak? Just tuning them out completely. Let's move on to pillar number 2, clarity and conciseness. But what is clarity and conciseness? It's essentially expressing ideas in a straightforward and succinct manner without unnecessary complexity or verbosity. You see what I did there? Kind of ironic, right? It's about clarity and conciseness, but this was the most complicated mumbo-jumbo sentence. Let's try it again. Clarity and conciseness is expressing ideas clearly and concisely without excess detail. Much better. Let's move on to, once again, the Alice and Bob example. Alice sees Bob and says, so we're implementing this thing where the user interface interacts with the backend through an API that leverages RESTful principles, and we're serializing data in JSON, but sometimes XML, depending on the context, to ensure compatibility across different systems. You guys might think that this is a joke, but I am not kidding. Very similar situations to these ones that I'm bringing up between Alice and Bob has happened at the places that I worked, literally, and even worse. And then Bob, of course, is like, what the hell just happened, right? Like, how could you understand anything from what Alice just said here? Bob's confused. What should Alice have done? Let's take a look. First and foremost, Alice just leaves out all the excess details that you just said. All she says is, we're adding a new feature that allows users to sync their data across devices. To this, Bob says, okay, that's cool, but how does it work? And now, Alice elaborates clearly and concisely, but only because Bob engages her. And so she explains the app will use a RESTful API to communicate with our servers, da-da-da. And then we have, makes sense, will this affect the user experience? And then Alice says it should improve it as users will have up-to-date data on any device. But what should you take away from this? What should you do to be more clear and concise, and how should you do it? Let's take a look. First and foremost, you need to know your audience. Who are you talking to? You need to tailor the explanation to the listener's level of technical understanding, especially if you are going to discuss anything technical, right? Next, you need to use simple language. Avoid unnecessary jargon and technical terms that they might not be familiar with. Then you need to be specific and direct. Focus on the key points that actually matter to the listener. Then you need to organize your thoughts. Present information in a logical sequence, in chronological order, such that it makes sense, so they don't have to grasp for straws. Then check for understanding. Pause every now and then and allow the listener to ask questions to make sure that they understood. Let's move on to pillar number 3, written communication. Now, when it comes to written communication, it's quite simple, right? It's simply the ability to convey messages through text, including emails, reports, and I have to emphasize this, comments and documentation and instant messaging. I see comments that say, well, documentation and commenting isn't part of written communication, it's part of programming skills. Guess what? Programming skills is also part of communication. You are conveying information, except instead to a human, you're doing it in computer language, right? So once again, we have the Alice and Bob example. And Alice is sending Bob an email. Hey Bob, we need to get those things done ASAP. Also, the action item from last week is still pending. Let me know. And this is an exact email I have actually gotten when I was just working my first year. This is the exact email I've gotten, except I've changed the names. But this is literally a real life example of the type of emails that I've gotten. Okay. And of course, Bobby's like, what the hell is happening? Like, how is he going to remember what those things are that need to be done ASAP? And what was the action item from last week? Maybe they had like 10 action items to do, right? So Bob's just confused as hell. He doesn't know what to do. What should Alice have done? Well, let's take a look at it. Hi, Bob. Hope you're doing well. Here are the priority tasks for this week and list them out in bullet points, highlighting whatever needs to be said. Database optimization for user profiles and an objective deadline resources. And Bob has now everything he needs to take a look and fix all the bugs and address the appropriate tasks, right? And then please let me know if you have any questions or need additional support. And of course, Bob says, thank you, Alice. I love you, because that's the best type of email that you can possibly get. But what should you do and how should you do it to better your written communication skills? Let's take a look. First and foremost, you need to use clear subject lines. Indicate the purpose of the email or whatever text message or whatever you're going to send out instantly. Then you need to structure your content. Use bullet points or number lists for clarity. Don't have just a bunch of mumbo jumbo with long sentences and run on sentences, right? And you need to be specific. Provide detailed information about the tasks and expectations that you expect from the other person. You need to maintain a professional tone, especially if you're in a business environment, right? Whether you're talking to your clients or you're talking to your boss or manager, you need to be courteous and respectful. You need to always proofread, check for spelling, grammar, and clarity before sending out the email or whatever it is you're going to send out. Let's move on to pillar number 4, verbal or oral communication. So what is verbal/oral communication? Well, it's the ability to convey messages through spoken words, like how we're doing now, whether it's face-to-face, over the phone, or via video calls, right? And once again, we have an Alice and Bob scenario, but here Alice is approaching Bob, and Bob is hard at work, focused on something completely different, okay? So Alice comes in, hey Bob, the project I'm working on is kind of taking longer than expected, I might need more time. And Bob is kind of stops what he's doing, he's confused, how much more time? Not sure, maybe a few more days or so, right? And Bob's like, okay, we'll talk about it later because he's busy right now. What did Alice do wrong here? He approached Bob when he was busy and he didn't have Bob's full attention. So whatever she said, right, it went through one ear and then left out the other when it comes to Bob. What she should have done, first and foremost, she should have scheduled the meeting and gotten confirmation for the appropriate time to approach Bob. Okay, at least give him a heads up. Hi Bob, do you have a moment to discuss the mobile app project? Now Bob is free. He can actively listen to you, right? You put him in a position beforehand where he can't actively listen to you, but now he can actively listen to you. Sure, Alice, what's on your mind? I want to inform you that the project is facing some unexpected challenges due to the third-party API limitations. We're encountering rate limits that are affecting our testing schedule. I see. How does this impact our deadline? To address these issues, blah, 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 blah. Thank you for bringing this up. Let's adjust the timeline accordingly. So what should we do and what can we take away from this to improve our verbal communication? First and foremost, with anybody that we're going to be talking to, we need to make sure that it's the right time. We need to make sure that the listener is available and not distracted such that they can actively listen to us. We also need to prepare our points. What are we going to be discussing? Know what you're going to be saying before you actually say it. Preparation is your best friend here. You also need to be clear and specific. State the issue, its impact, and the proposed solution if you're offering a solution, right? Also use the appropriate tone. You need to remain professional and respectful, especially if you're talking to clients or somebody above you. And always confirm understanding. Ensure that the listener has grasped the information you're providing and has agreed on the next steps. And if you consciously work on these 4 pillars, you will drastically improve your communication skills. Remember, experience is the best teacher. The more people you can interact with, the better. Furthermore, don't disregard reading. It's one of the best ways of improving communication and also increasing your word bank. And communication is the most versatile skill in the world. And it is actually the prerequisite for the second most versatile and the third most versatile skills, marketing and sales. And understand that 99% of the things that you want in life depend on other people. And the better you communicate, the higher chances of getting what you want. And with that, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video on communication. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Have a good one.